Good afternoon. Here's a disclaimer. I am not a financial advisor. Nothing in this video is financial advice or a recommendation to buy or sell any financial product. All content is for informational purposes only, based on personal opinions and experiences. Trading futures, options, and other financial instruments involves substantial risk of loss and is not suitable for every investor. You can lose more than your initial investment, so always do your own research and consult with a licensed financial professional. Jeez, did I read something over twice there? That felt long. But anyway, let me do this quickly. So here's what we did for the day. If you see from the context of our plan, we had more so the gap and revert day. So we opened in a gap lower and we reverted. We basically closed the gap. We missed 2 ticks. We left 2 ticks and we closed near the highs. So I won't go through a summary of the day necessarily, but that's overall what we did. We brought value, we found good value. There's a good belly here, and we shifted value higher, closing near the highs, and it's a pretty weak high. The only trade I had was pretty much right off the open. Like, it started to set up right here in the overnight. It wasn't an error, but there was a key, I guess, mistake that was made, or I guess maybe something I missed in this trade that led it to be not that good and likely could have been a clue of the full stop I did take. So I took a full stop. I went short right off the open, and so basically this was the move I was going off of. This was a decently aggressive push lower that pushed through overnight VPOC and, continued lower and moved away from it, So I mentioned that in my plans that's something I look for. So then you pulled back. This pullback touched overnight VPOC. It was 62, I think, 60, 62. So it touched VPOC and it's kind of hard to see from the numbers, but this was sort of the break. So we check and then we break lower and we broke back below the open. So then on this next bar, I got filled right at RTH VWAP. It's not the best entry. My stop was like 2 ticks above here. But yeah, I wanted to get in ahead of RTH VWAP because once you get up here and you're shorting, well, then you have to go through it, which is a potential resistance area, like an area or I guess a potential support area, an area we could potentially get support and revert higher. So you don't really that's why I kind of want to be at it or below it, so I didn't have to worry about that. And so not the best entry because of that reason, but the key thing I missed here was on this push lower. Like, you gave a nice rounded top and then it broke lower. The key thing I missed is you can see this low did not quite break this low, right? Which I missed. I just didn't notice it at the time. It was like 9:01 when I got into this trade, so it was super quick. And so maybe I wasn't exactly fully prepared for it. But you can see the consolidation we did up here, and then you break lower, you break through overnight VPOC, which is good, but you would have liked to seen it break this low to have, I guess, stronger convictions of the continuation short for the gap and go scenario and the test of overnight low. You want to see it break the structure and then pull back to overnight VPOC, which is just something I missed. I think I just had thought it broke, just looked at it and didn't really think about it because it's close, right? It's only a couple ticks. But that was the key reason. Other than that, the idea was sound. I talked about the gap and go day in my plans, and this kind of set up early where you kind of had to take it or not. This was one of those trades where if it had worked out, I probably would have just been managing these 3 contracts the rest of the day. But you had, high information risk. High information risk because the RTH just started. But if it had worked out, you likely would have bought or sold the highs, right? And it would have just continued all day, right? So not a bad trade. I did forget to record today, so I don't have the actual video of me taking the trade, so I won't be able to show that. But it was early, and it was negative 27 ticks, so negative $27 American. And yeah, not a bad trade. Like I said, didn't work out in this case, missed a key clue, but everything else was sound and the way I normally do things. So not bad overall. Tomorrow is Friday, so it's end of day. I am gonna be focusing a bit more on scalp trades than more structured. Like similar to that trade. That trade was technically more of a scalp, just because of the tighter nature and the fact that it happened in the end of the overnight into the RTH. But there are a few scalps that I could have taken that I sort of passed on. Like this one was one. Again, this 60.62 was overnight VPOC, so you then rejected lower prices, impulsed higher, pulled back, and held overnight VPOC. So that was basically the same setup, just on the other side. Um, but because this had fallen, because you had came up and tested full session VWAP, once you fell below RTH DGPs, I was already leaning more balance at this time. So I decided not to take it because it naturally becomes a scalp trade if you're balanced bias for me. But you ended up going, you gave a pretty insignificant extension, a couple ticks. But then, yeah, then there was one more I thought about taking, but then on the IB break, on this pullback after the IB break, but this IB break just wasn't good enough for me. Like it just didn't look good. It didn't show, this break doesn't show any signs of continuation for me, you know. You didn't really trade there, you know, there was not a lot of volume done, and you can see like even after the IB break is like this yellow line is the open. Like you have barely traded below the open. So then, you know, I let it pass me by and we ended up getting support at the open that continued higher. And the last trade I could have taken, this one I technically couldn't have taken, but this pullback on the neutral was a good one. This one was probably the only real more structural trade of the day. So you got the neutral day IB high break, and then, you know, buyers were still trying but couldn't really succeed on a shallow pullback for continuation. But then you pull back to full session levels. You gave a nice zipper break, and then you continue. But I focus on the 9 to 11. You can see it's like 11:10 here. And so I was pretty much done. I think I had left and gone to the washroom because I have a call at 11 that I joined to just sort of sum up what I did during the day, with like an accountability partner type of person. And yeah, so I was already done and I kind of was out of the active trading mindset. But so yeah, there was a lot of opportunity on the scalp side, and so I'm gonna be a bit more open, I think, to scalp trades because overall crude has been pretty difficult for pullbacks as of late. Like we've really just been balancing. Like this was balance within, you know, this broader balance, like, and now we're in the middle of the broader balance pretty much, and so it's just harder for more structured pullbacks, right? Because you're just not really getting the follow through, and they're not really setting up cleanly either because most of the time we're in balance, right? So, you know, like you did break out later in the day, you know, post lunch, but you know, this was balanced, and then you had this nice move, but then you just balanced up here, and then you dropped, and then you finally extend. So it's like, you know, it's better for scalping, I think, and so I'll start doing that with a little more focus tomorrow. So yeah, that's the end of day. Not a bad day overall. You know, followed my plan. Um, Took a valid trade, and so good day overall. You know. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow morning. Like I said, I don't have the video unfortunately of the trade, but I'll be back tomorrow morning for my daily prep. So see you then.